Hey, and welcome to the section of BD Playbook on dialogue continuity, or keeping conversations alive with prospects and existing partners. Now, let's first talk about why most conversations die. You may think it's because somebody doesn't want your product or service, and that's the reason that somebody's not picking up their phone or answering their email, but actually it's because of something that you can control in many instances. Generally, people avoid confrontation, and this is so important to understand and alludes to directly why you actually have more control over conversational continuity and responsiveness than you think. Instead of dealing with confrontation or having to say no to something or telling somebody they're not interested, people just avoid you because they're often afraid of it. So the number one thing that you can do in order to preempt these situations where somebody's not getting back to you is creating a container very early on in the conversation for continuity, just by giving them permission to say no, or to say I'm not interested, or to say right now isn't the best fit. And there's a couple ways to do this, but my favorite way to do this is basically just in the beginning give them permission and let them know that that is okay. So you might want to say something like this: my goal is at the end of this call for us to make a mutual decision whether my company can add value to yours. I really believe that it can, but hey, if it turns out that this isn't a focus for you right now, I want you to know I totally understand. The most important thing is that we keep the communication lines open and that you let me know where things stand so that I can be most helpful moving forward. Does that sound good? Now, this script basically creates a container in a couple of ways for this person to be open and honest with you. So if we go through this really quickly, part one, you say that the goal of the call is basically for you guys to come to a mutual agreement whether your company can add value. In part two, you say that it's okay if it isn't a focus right now, or that this isn't the best fit. And part three basically just specifies that the number one priority for you is keeping the communications line open. So when you say things like this, you're indicating to somebody that if it turns out that you guys shouldn't work together, maybe right now at least, that's entirely okay. And this just creates the container for you to have an open and honest dialogue, so there isn't instances where somebody's not getting back to you because they're avoiding confrontation, and ultimately you're just left in ambiguity, not knowing where a deal is, not moving forward, not moving on, because you haven't created a container for an open and honest conversation. Strategy number two, exercise the power of congruence at the end of a call. Now, we talked about this a bit earlier, but people generally like to be consistent with what they say they're going to do and what they actually do, because it is a sign of high integrity. You can use this to your advantage by getting people to commit to things that ensure that a conversation remains open regardless of whether things are positive or negative. Let's look at how we do this. When you close a pitch or ask a partner for something, and they basically say, hey, I need to get back to my team first and then I'll let you know. What you can do is say something like, okay, great, I totally understand. Any idea when you're going to have a chance to talk with them? They might say Monday or Tuesday or next week, whatever it is. After they get back to you, you want to ask them if they'd be willing to send you an update on what their team says or what their boss says or whoever the decision maker is. And say, I'd really appreciate any feedback, even if it's not the best news. Now, every single time I've asked this question, people usually say, sure, happy to send you feedback. Okay, great. I really appreciate your willingness to send me that feedback. It means a lot to me. You end the call. After the call, you want to basically seal that commitment in stone by sending the following email. Hey, great connecting today about whatever initiative. I enjoyed learning about your company and small world that you also love Rio de Janeiro. I really appreciate you offering to email me some feedback once you have a chance to talk to your team. It means a lot. I look forward to hearing from you then. Now, what you've done here is basically established with this person that they committed to provide you feedback, even if it's not the best feedback. And what this means is you essentially have this person on the hook. And they want to be consistent by actually doing what they said they were going to do, which means there's a higher likelihood that they are going to give you a response, even if it's not a positive one. Okay, even when you create containers for open and honest conversations and do things like lever the power of consistency, conversations still stall or go cold, or people just don't get back to you. The good news is when this occurs, there's still a few things that you can do to reinvigorate conversations. The first strategy is something I call the pity party. So the pity party is really about humanizing yourself by painting a picture of a potentially familiar situation that might call to the table some empathy on the other party. And essentially what you're doing here is just painting the picture of a scenario where somebody needs something from you, your boss is riding you for this thing, and everyone's had the situation, and it would be really meaningful if they could just give you this thing that you need, which is information, because your boss is riding you. So you're basically leveraging empathy here by recalling a familiar situation that this person might have been in to improve the chances of this person responding. Now I'm going to read the script, and hopefully this paints a picture of what I'm talking about. Hey X, I have a meeting with my CEO on Wednesday, and he asked for me to give him an update on where things stand with all the companies I've spoken with this month. Any chance you could provide me an update on where things stand before then? Even if it's news I don't want to hear, it'd be incredibly helpful. Thank you so much. So again, what you're doing here when somebody hasn't gotten back to you is basically indicating that, hey, they're key members of your team, maybe your CEO. And by the way, you should only do this if you have people that truly want an update, because you should always practice honesty in all and every situation in business. And basically, when you have somebody that you need to report to, bring this to the table and let them know, my boss is writing me. They want this thing. I'm trying to figure out just where things stand. It's okay if it's not the best news in the world. Any help would be super, super helpful and appreciated by me. Okay, so the pity party can work great when you need an update and somebody is being unresponsive. Another strategy for when a prospect or partner goes cold is blaming yourself for the lack of communication. I'm going to go ahead and read a script and then just go through this to demonstrate how blaming yourself when conversation has stalled can be incredibly effective. Hi partner, I first want to apologize that we haven't been able to connect recently. I felt like somewhere along the way I must have made it difficult to communicate or drop the ball, because for a while there it seemed like you guys were really excited about our offering. Apologies if this was the case. I just want to open back up the communication lines and let you know that I know you have a lot on your plate, and if this is something that is no longer a priority, that's totally cool. In fact, as a startup, I completely understand. If nothing else, I'd enjoy the opportunity to hear what's new on your end and maybe even get some feedback on how we can improve our offering. Let me know if you have a few minutes next week to hop on a call. So again, the context here is somebody just for whatever reason went cold and stopped responding to you. And this person knows that they were the one that basically halted the communication. So what you do here is when you blame yourself, it basically signals to that person, wait a second, oh my gosh, no, I know it was my fault. I feel bad that this person is now blaming themselves for something that is actually my fault. And this can prompt a response. And again, you're humanizing yourself, you're exercising empathy here, and people don't want to feel like they caused pain on somebody else when in fact they were the reason that a conversation stalled or that something hasn't been moving forward. And oftentimes when you do this, people will get back to you and say something like, oh my gosh, no, I'm sorry, it's just been crazy busy here, it's super hectic, I didn't mean to be distant, maybe we can hop on a call in 2 weeks or whatever it is. This can be an incredibly powerful strategy. Another powerful tool for reinvigorating conversations is the presumptive negative. Essentially, what this is explicitly stating that you assume that they're not interested because you haven't heard from them. And this forces a prospect to choose, and it polarizes them. Either they're going to get back to you and say, oh, no, we actually are interested, or they'll say, yeah, that's right, we're not interested, or you won't hear from them again. So you can accomplish this by saying something like, hey, since I haven't heard from you since I last emailed you about moving forward with the relationship, I'm going to assume that at this point in time, you're not interested in moving forward. If this is not the case, please let me know. Otherwise, all the best. And again, when you say something like this, you force a prospect to choose. If there's any glimmer of hope for the relationship to actually happen, the person will see this and respond immediately and say something like, oh, no, I don't want you to think that we are interested. I've just been really busy, or whatever the reason is that they've been distant. And if it turns out that they don't get back to you, then guess what? They're not interested, and you can move on and stop wasting your time on deals that won't go anywhere. Okay, other effective tools for conversation continuity and making sure that you have a lively dialogue with potential partners. You can send them pings without mentioning the deal status. Again, this is why it's so important for you to understand what is important to your prospect's personal life and just what their interests are. I can't tell you how many times I've just sent an email about somebody's favorite sports team, or a YouTube video that I thought they'd like, or just a piece of news that was completely unrelated to our deal. And they've gotten back to me like, oh, thanks so much for sharing this. By the way, I just talked to our lawyers and this is where the contract is. Here's just an example of an unrelated ping that you could send when a prospect has gone cold. And again, the context here is that this person is an Eagles fan like me. So the subject line could be, can't believe overtime, and then just a simple brief message. I didn't think the Eagles defense could be any less clutch until yesterday's game. Peyton's unbelievable. And what I'm doing here is starting a dialogue around something that they care about that is not any pressure-filled conversation, because it has nothing to do with the deal status. And you'd be surprised how effective this can be just in reinvigorating conversations that have, for whatever reason, ceased. Okay, another strategy that you can use is news on your company or competitors. So anytime something good happens with your company or competitors, between you and your company and competitors, basically you can send the people that have gone cold an email. And I call this, I have a list of people that I call the tickle list, that basically every time something awesome happens with our company or with one of their competitors and our company, I send these people an email just giving them a subtle heads up. So you might say something like this if you have some good company news and you want to kind of prompt them to start a dialogue again. Hey, I just want to give you the heads up that we recently released a new version of our API. We couldn't be more excited, as it will now allow all of our partners to do whatever. Here's a picture of the product team just before the finish line. So if somebody's gone cold, they might see an email like this and be like, oh, you know what? That's actually really interesting to us, or I should get back to this person, or whatever. And you shouldn't always expect responses here, but if you have some good news, tell all the people in your pipeline that for whatever reason haven't gotten back to you recently. And sometimes they'll see some good news and it'll be the perfect timing to reinvigorate a conversation on their end. Let's say that something awesome happened with one of their competitors and your company. Again, you can give them the heads up, and here's a great way to do that. Hey, I just wanted to give you the heads up that our implementation with competitor 1 should be going live in a week. I wanted you to hear from me first, as there's a chance there'll be some good press around it. I'm happy to hop on a call if need be. And what this does is it basically puts you as a good guy in a way that applies pressure to the relationship. So when somebody they're competing with, something good is happening, you don't want to rub it in this person's face. That's not necessarily a great rapport building strategy. However, if you do want to let them know, because this does apply pressure and could inspire some urgency on their end to progress your relationship or at least get back to you. So you can accomplish this in a friendly way by saying something like, I wanted you to hear it from me first, as there's a chance there'll be some good press around it. This can be a great strategy to reinvigorate dialogues that have gone cold.